What if just one invention had never existed? No wheel. No World Wide Web. The modern world would look almost unrecognizable. Some were born from careful genius, others from pure accident. In this journey through history, we'll uncover the inventions that didn't simply improve civilization, they changed the course of humanity forever. Chapter 1: The First Ideas That Built Civilization. Long before skyscrapers, railways, and smartphones, humanity survived with little more than determination and imagination. Every journey was made on foot. Every heavy object had to be dragged across the ground. Rivers divided communities, and knowledge traveled no faster than the people carrying it. Life was simple, but progress was painfully slow. Then, over thousands of years, a series of remarkably simple inventions quietly changed everything. Among the earliest was the sailboat. Around 6,000 years ago, the people of ancient Mesopotamia discovered that the wind could do far more than cool a hot afternoon. By fastening cloth to a wooden mast, they created a vessel that could harness nature itself. Suddenly, rivers became highways rather than barriers. Traders carried grain, pottery, and precious materials farther than ever before, while ideas and cultures began traveling alongside them. It marked the beginning of long-distance trade and connected communities that had once lived in isolation. Not long afterwards came perhaps the greatest mechanical invention in history, the wheel. It's so familiar today that we rarely stop to think about it, yet before the wheel existed, moving anything heavy demanded enormous human effort. Huge stones for temples, crops from the fields, and supplies for growing settlements all relied on muscle alone. The simple idea of a rotating circle transformed transport forever. Carts replaced dragging sledges, goods could travel greater distances, and entire economies became more efficient. Even pottery makers benefited, using spinning wheels to create stronger and more consistent vessels. Few inventions have influenced so many aspects of daily life. Building those expanding settlements required another invention that rarely receives the credit it deserves: the humble nail. The ancient Egyptians, famous for their monumental architecture, developed early metal nails that allowed wooden structures to be joined more securely than rope or wooden pegs alone. Thousands of years later, Roman blacksmiths refined production techniques, making nails widely available across their empire. From homes and ships to bridges and furniture, this tiny piece of metal became one of civilization's most reliable building blocks. But progress wasn't measured only in grand buildings or faster transport. It also depended on healthier lives. Early soap, created in Mesopotamia from animal fats and wood ash, may seem unremarkable today, yet it represented one of humanity's first important steps towards better hygiene. Combined with advances such as early sanitation systems, it helped reduce disease and improve everyday living long before anyone understood the science behind germs. Finally came an invention that changed not how people traveled, but how they thought: the abacus. Appearing in ancient Mesopotamia around 2700 BC, this simple counting device enabled merchants, officials, and traders to perform calculations with remarkable speed and accuracy. Long before calculators, spreadsheets, or computers, the abacus brought order to commerce, taxation, and record-keeping. In many ways, it was the world's first practical computing tool. Chapter 2: When knowledge began to travel. For thousands of years, knowledge was fragile. A brilliant idea could disappear with the person who discovered it. Stories were passed from one generation to the next by memory alone. Records were carved into stone or scratched onto clay tablets, effective, perhaps, but slow, expensive, and difficult to transport. Then came an invention that quietly changed the future of civilization: paper. Around 105 AD, during China's Han Dynasty, court official Cai Lun developed a practical method of making paper from plant fibers. It was lighter, cheaper, and easier to produce than bamboo slips or silk, making written information far more accessible. Scholars could share ideas more widely. Ordinary people, over time, gained greater access to learning. Paper became the foundation upon which education, literature, and science would flourish. Yet knowledge alone was not enough. People also needed a way to explore the unknown. That breakthrough came in the form of the compass. Originally developed in ancient China as a device used for fortune-telling, the magnetic compass eventually found a far greater purpose. By the 11th century, sailors were using it to navigate even when coastlines disappeared from view. The oceans became less mysterious. Explorers ventured farther from home, merchants opened new trade routes, and distant cultures met one another as never before. Without the compass, the great voyages of discovery that reshaped the world might never have taken place. As trade expanded and societies grew more organized, another challenge emerged: time. Before mechanical clocks, daily life was guided by the rising sun, church bells, or simple water clocks. Accurate timekeeping was almost impossible. Then, in 8th century China, engineers Yixing and Liang Lingzan created one of the world's first mechanical clocks. Although primitive by modern standards, it marked a remarkable leap forward. Over the centuries, increasingly accurate clocks transformed farming, navigation, science, and eventually industry itself. Every train timetable, factory shift, and international meeting owe something to humanity's growing ability to measure time with precision. But perhaps no invention spread knowledge more dramatically than the printing press. Before Johannes Gutenberg's revolutionary press appeared in the mid-15th century, books were copied painstakingly by hand. A single manuscript could take months or even years to complete, making books rare treasures owned mostly by monasteries, universities, and the wealthy elite. Gutenberg changed all that. Using movable metal type, his printing press allowed books to be reproduced quickly, consistently, and in far greater numbers than ever before. For the first time, ideas could spread across countries instead of remaining locked away in a handful of libraries. Literacy increased. Scientific discoveries reached wider audiences. Religious debate intensified. New political movements gathered momentum. In many ways, the modern information age began not with computers, but with ink, paper, and a printing press. These inventions shared one remarkable achievement. They allowed ideas to travel farther than people ever could. Knowledge was no longer confined to one village, one scholar, or one generation. It crossed oceans, survived centuries, and transformed humanity itself. Chapter 3: The Machines That Built the Modern World. By the end of the 17th century, the world stood on the edge of a transformation unlike anything seen before. Then Britain changed everything. In 1698, English engineer Thomas Savery patented one of the world's first commercially practical steam-powered engines. Designed to pump water from flooded mines, it solved a problem that had frustrated miners for generations. Improved by inventors such as Thomas Newcomen and later James Watt, the steam engine became the beating heart of the Industrial Revolution. Factories multiplied across Britain. Textile mills worked day and night. Steam-powered locomotives carried passengers and goods across the country at previously unimaginable speeds. Ships no longer relied entirely on favorable winds. Industry, commerce, and travel entered a completely new age. Britain became known as the workshop of the world, and the influence of the steam engine spread across every continent. As machines accelerated production, another invention shrank the distances between people. In 1816, English scientist Francis Ronalds demonstrated one of the first practical electric telegraphs. A few decades later, Samuel Morse developed a commercial system capable of sending messages across vast distances in minutes rather than weeks. It is difficult for us to appreciate just how extraordinary this seemed. For the first time in human history, information traveled faster than a horse, a ship, or a train. News of wars, business deals, and family emergencies could cross countries almost instantly. Communication took another giant leap in 1876 when Scottish-born inventor Alexander Graham Bell unveiled the first practical telephone. No longer did messages need to be translated into electrical signals and decoded at the other end. People could simply speak. Hearing the voice of someone hundreds of miles away must have seemed almost magical. Businesses expanded more rapidly, families remained connected across great distances, and the foundations of today's global communication networks were firmly established. Yet perhaps the most visionary invention of this era never truly reached the public during its creator's lifetime. In the early 19th century, English mathematician Charles Babbage designed the difference engine and later the analytical engine, remarkable mechanical machines capable of performing complex calculations automatically. Although never completed in full because of engineering limitations and financial difficulties, Babbage's designs contained many of the principles found inside every modern computer. Concepts such as programmable instructions, memory, and automatic processing all appeared in his extraordinary plans, more than a century before electronic computers became reality. The modern world was no longer built simply by human hands. It was powered by machines, connected by communication and driven by ideas that first emerged during one extraordinary period of innovation, an age in which Britain stood firmly at the center of history. Chapter 4: The Inventions That Saved Millions of Lives. For most of human history, illness was feared as much as war. One of the first steps towards modern medicine came with a surprisingly simple invention, the thermometer. In the early 17th century, Italian physician Santo Rio developed one of the world's first practical thermometers, allowing doctors to measure body temperature rather than rely solely on observation. It transformed diagnosis, giving medicine a more scientific foundation. Yet perhaps the greatest breakthrough came in 1842. American surgeon Crawford Long successfully used ether as an anesthetic during surgery, proving that major operations no longer had to involve unbearable pain. For the first time, surgeons could work with greater precision and take the time needed to perform complex procedures. What had once been a desperate last resort gradually became a life-saving science. Then, almost by accident, came one of history's most extraordinary discoveries. In 1928, Scottish scientist Alexander Fleming noticed that a mold growing in one of his laboratory dishes had killed the surrounding bacteria. That accidental observation led to the discovery of penicillin, the world's first true antibiotic. Its impact was almost impossible to overstate. Diseases that had claimed millions of lives for centuries suddenly became treatable. Soldiers wounded in war stood a far greater chance of surviving. Common infections that once proved deadly could often be cured with a simple course of medicine. Together, these breakthroughs transformed medicine from an uncertain art into a powerful science. Today, billions of people owe their lives, often without even realizing it, to inventions that replaced fear with hope and changed the future of healthcare forever. Chapter 5: When the World Lit Up. Imagine returning home after sunset 200 years ago. The streets were dark. Homes were illuminated by flickering candles or smoky oil lamps. Then electricity began to reshape everyday life. One of its greatest symbols was the light bulb. Although several inventors experimented with electric lighting throughout the 19th century, it was Thomas Edison who developed a practical incandescent bulb suitable for widespread use in 1879. Combined with expanding electrical networks, the light bulb transformed cities around the world. Streets became safer, factories operated long after sunset, and families could read, work, and socialize well into the evening. Human productivity was no longer limited by the rising and setting of the sun. But light was only the beginning. In 1895, Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi demonstrated the first practical wireless radio system. For the first time, information could travel invisibly through the air. The impact was astonishing. Ships at sea could communicate with the shore. Governments could broadcast important announcements. During times of war, radio became an essential military tool. Later, it brought music, news, sporting events, and royal broadcasts directly into millions of living rooms. Families gathered around a single radio set, sharing moments that united entire nations. Another invention quietly transformed life inside the home. In the 18th century, Scottish physician William Cullen demonstrated the principle of artificial refrigeration, but it was during the 20th century that domestic refrigerators became common. Suddenly, fresh food could be stored safely for days instead of hours. Families wasted less, diets improved, and shopping habits changed forever. It was one of those inventions whose true importance became obvious only after people could no longer imagine living without it. Finally came a technology that reshaped entire cities. In 1902, American engineer Willis Carrier developed the first modern air conditioning system. Originally designed to solve industrial problems, it soon transformed offices, hospitals, cinemas, and homes. Individually, these inventions solved different problems. Together, they transformed daily life in ways previous generations could scarcely have imagined. They extended our days beyond sunset, connected voices across continents, preserved the food on our tables, and made extreme climates far more livable. They didn't simply improve comfort. They quietly redefined what people came to expect from everyday life, creating the modern world we now take completely for granted. Chapter 6: The world became connected. For thousands of years, distance shaped every aspect of human life. The first great leap came with the automobile. In 1886, German engineer Carl Benz introduced what is widely regarded as the world's first practical motor car. At first, it was little more than a curious machine, dismissed by many as a noisy novelty. Yet as roads improved and production became more efficient, the car transformed society. Families could travel farther than ever before. Businesses reached new customers. But if the car conquered the land, the aeroplane conquered the sky. When Orville and Wilbur Wright achieved the first powered flight in 1903, few imagined that within decades people would routinely cross continents in a matter of hours. Air travel revolutionized tourism, international trade, and diplomacy. Fresh food could be transported across oceans, emergency aid could reach disaster zones quickly, and families separated by thousands of miles were no longer a lifetime apart. The 20th century then witnessed another communications revolution. In 1973, engineers at Motorola unveiled the world's first handheld mobile phone. Compared with today's sleek smartphones, it was enormous, heavy, and offered little more than the ability to make a call. Yet it represented something extraordinary, the freedom to communicate almost anywhere. Over the following decades, mobile technology evolved at breathtaking speed. Phones became cameras, maps, music players, banking tools, and portable computers, placing remarkable computing power into the hands of billions of people. Yet perhaps the most influential invention of the modern age wasn't a physical object at all. In 1989, while working at CERN in Switzerland, British computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee introduced the World Wide Web. Although the Internet already existed, it was largely a network used by researchers and specialists. Berners-Lee's vision created a simple system that allowed information to be linked together and accessed through web browsers. Suddenly, knowledge became available to anyone with an internet connection. The effects were profound. Shopping changed. Education changed. Business changed. Entertainment changed. Even the way we form friendships, learn new skills, and remember history changed forever. Today, billions of websites connect people across every continent in an instant. A video created in London can be watched moments later in Sydney, Toronto, or Tokyo. A small business can sell products around the globe. Entire libraries now fit inside a device that slips easily into a pocket. Looking back across thousands of years, it's remarkable to see how each invention built upon those that came before. The wheel made movement easier. Paper preserved ideas. The printing press spread knowledge. Steam engines powered industry. Telephones connected voices. Computers processed information. And the World Wide Web connected humanity itself. Each breakthrough became the foundation for the next, proving that history is not shaped by one invention alone, but by generations of extraordinary ideas, each inspiring another.